Welcome to the Respectful Divorce Podcast. If you're considering divorce, it's important to know that you have options for how you divorce. On the Respectful Divorce Podcast, we explore those options and provide advice from divorce professionals. I'm your host, Tim Crouch, and today we're talking with Texas collaborative divorce attorney Darci Loveless with the law firm of Loveless and Loveless. Darcy, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Tim.
So let's start first of all with a question about what it's like to go through the divorce process in Texas and in particular here in Denton County.
It can vary quite a bit case to case, but every divorce starts with someone filing a petition for divorce, and every divorce ends with a final decree of divorce. In the middle in Denton County, we frequently have temporary hearings where a judge tells people how they will pay their bills and handle their children while they're in the middle of the divorce. We exchange formal discovery where each side sends requests and responses and documents to the other side. We exchange inventories and appraisements where each side prepares an inventory of all of the assets and the liabilities in the estate. And then we either mediate the case or go to a final trial in front of the judge to decide how things will be handled after the divorce.
So how long does that take?
It also varies case to case. It has to take at least 61 days because a petition has to be on file for 60 days before the divorce can be granted. And when people come in agreement on what's going to happen, sometimes it happens in that short time frame. I would say more commonly 4 to 6 months is an average length of time for a divorce in Denton County. And then there's quite a few that go further, sometimes in the 12 to 18 month range.
And my guess would be that if it goes all the way to trial, that's a lot longer than if it gets mediated or something along those lines.
Yes, that would be true, for sure.
Yeah. So there are different options for how you could go through a divorce. One of those is a litigated divorce, and mediation's kind of part of that. And I guess you can do it at your kitchen table. But the other option is really around collaborative divorce. And what is that process, and how is it different from the traditional divorce process?
So the collaborative process also starts with a petition for divorce and ends with a final decree of divorce. But the way the parties get to through the middle of the case make their decisions is very different. In that case, you have at least a divorce lawyer for each party. And you sometimes have a neutral financial professional and or a neutral mental health professional to help run meetings, help gather information, and help put information together in a way where everyone can digest it together. We have a series of meetings with agendas where we talk about various things like how things will be handled during the divorce, what information needs to be gathered, them reviewing the information and making decisions with the parties together in one room about how things will be divided and how parenting will be accomplished.
Well, and one of the hallmarks of this is that everybody involved commits that they will not go to court.
That is correct. The petition for divorce gets filed in the court and the decree gets filed at the end, but there aren't any other litigated matters that happen in court in the middle.
So why is it important to be committed to not going to court?
We like to try to preserve the family relationships as well as we can during a divorce. And oftentimes we find that in the collaborative process, it works better to preserve those relationships long term. And sometimes even for couples without children, but most particularly for couples that do have children, it's important to keep a relationship where everyone is as comfortable with each other as possible moving forward.
Yeah, and so the decision making is really something the couple owns, as opposed to the professional saying you should do it this way or a judge saying you will do it this way, right?
Yes, and we've found that when couples make decisions in this process, it gives them a framework to keep making decisions as they move forward and run into new challenges after the divorce.
And when you say new challenges, what does that mean? What does that look like?
Well, frequently we will have people after the divorce, as time passes, children get older and have different needs. And so sometimes what worked well at the divorce needs to change. And if parents have a framework to talk about hard issues, talk about maybe extracurricular activities, talk about how to pay for expenses, it can be easier to move through those without having to return to court and have a judge decide for them how they'll be handled.
And in the litigated process, that's often how those decisions get made, right?
It is frequently the case. We do have mediation in the litigated process, and a lot of cases do settle without going to court, but they are geared more around a negotiation set that hinges on what the family code says is presumed, what the judge will do in court. And while everyone may be able to live with the agreements they make if they make them in litigation, if they don't make them, the judge will tell them what to do. And often the agreements are less than satisfactory because they're not so closely tailored to what the clients actually need.
So when we think about this collaborative process, and you've been doing this for a number of years now, how have you seen this process benefit your clients? And were there cases where you ended up in litigation, you said, boy, if they'd have just gone down the collaborative route?
There are some that we wish had gone to the collaborative route. I am finding that although you can't necessarily say collaborative divorce is less expensive than litigated divorce, in looking at the cases I've done, I think in each collaborative divorce I've done, had those people chosen to litigate all the way through a trial, the collaborative process was less expensive than that would have been. I think I can say that for every case. And I also think that one of the benefits is I recently reviewed all of the cases I've done in preparation for a certification application and discovered that a far lower percentage of people came back for contested modifications later than in the rest of my litigated cases. And that benefits people because, first of all, they're not financially continuing to spend money on attorneys repeatedly over and over again. It also benefits them emotionally because they're not under the stress of litigation. And there's some research that shows that for children, it's not so much whether your parents get a divorce that impacts you negatively. It's the how they divorce and whether they stay in protracted litigation after that that makes or breaks some of the outcomes we see for children.
So I want you to talk about that. When you talk about outcomes for children, what are the negative outcomes for children that have had that protracted litigation divorce that their parents have been involved in?
Oftentimes, those children have, first of all, learned that their parents don't like each other. That's harmful to children because children know that they are half of each parent. And so when the parents dislike each other, the child sort of absorbs the idea, from what I understand, that, they must be in some way bad because they're a part of that other parent that the first parent dislikes so much. It's also very stressful for children to worry repeatedly about where they're going to live, about whether things are going to come out a certain way, about whether they have to talk to a judge, about whether they're in the middle of a custody evaluation talking to that kind of person. Sometimes they get dragged to counselors for the express purpose of litigation, and then they get a skewed view of counseling because, maybe the things they say aren't really confidential. There's a whole lot of places that protracted litigation can negatively affect children.
And we start to see that in form of schoolwork that perhaps starts to go down, the quality of the work, or other kinds of behaviors that really can carry over for the rest of their life.
Yes. And also, if they're learning to manipulate one parent against the other because they can, that can also be problematic behavior that lasts permanently into adulthood.
Well, so this, as we're doing this podcast, it's ahead of Divorce with Respect Week, which is coming up March 1st through 8th. And I wonder, as you see that kind of term, divorce with respect, what does that mean to you? What does that look like?
To me, I think it does speak of the collaborative process in a lot of ways. I think that it means people who consider not only what they need moving forward themselves, but what their children need and what their soon-to-be former spouse needs. If everyone is able to meet their needs in a divorce, it ends up with happier outcomes. It ends up with less stressful outcomes.
So during Divorce with Respect Week, people can contact you or other divorce professionals and have a free consultation. What's that consultation like?
So that consultation will provide information about the processes available, about collaborative specifically. The two attorneys in our office, and I think all the Divorce with Respect Week attorneys, are collaboratively trained so they can answer questions about all the options. And that will be letting them know how that would proceed, getting some basic information about what might be divided in the case, about what the issues with children are, if there are any in the case. And then, talking with them about how we would try to structure that to get them through the process as easily as possible.
And during Divorce with Respect Week, they can talk to attorneys like you, collaboratively trained attorneys, but also mental health professionals or financial professionals that can give them some perspective from some of the other angles of the collaborative process.
Yes, and sometimes people don't understand how a mental health professional or a financial professional can be helpful in the process. And I will say that one of the places we struggle sometimes is when people need to have those professionals but chose not to. It can be hard to backtrack and bring them in. And I think it's a great value for people to take this opportunity to understand what each of those professionals can bring to the table.
Yeah, and so the financial professional understands finances at a level that attorneys don't, right?
They do, and they also, because everyone in this process is committed to producing all the information, that person acts as a central information gatherer. It streamlines the process where you don't have two law offices duplicating the same activity. They put together all of the estate information on a spreadsheet. They often know good questions to ask to make sure that we're not missing certain benefits or certain assets or debts that need to be divided. They also like to run our couples through post-divorce budgeting to try to help make sure that the decisions they're making will actually work in real life.
And in the litigated process, that really doesn't ever happen, does it?
It really does not. I suppose people could choose to do that process in litigated, but it is a more specified part of collaborative where the financial professionals ask for it to happen, and many, many more people are able to see their outcomes in real life, or if they're going to have a shortfall, understand where that's going to come and help try to find solutions to fix it.
Yeah, and the mental health professional does what in the collaborative process?
So everyone always thinks that the mental health professional is providing therapy, but in this process, that's not what they're doing. In this process, they help run the meetings, which is good because then you have someone keeping track of the agenda, keeping people moving forward on that agenda during a meeting. You also have them help with communication. You have them help knowing when maybe someone's getting overwhelmed and needs a break. And they are in charge of all of those things. When we go offline, they also meet with the couples to see where communication challenges might lie and help navigate some of those ahead of meetings, which will help the meetings go more smoothly. And if there are children involved, they can also help the couple offline, negotiate a parenting plan, and then bring back to the table only a summary of that plan, and then only the issues that need real group discussion. This also helps streamline the fees because in Texas, there's a lot of parts to a parenting plan, and getting as many of those done with the couple together offline with one professional is an efficiency thing for the cost of the process.
And their hourly rate or the financial professional's hourly rate is well below that of an attorney, right?
It is often below that of the attorney. And if the couple is meeting with those people just with one person, then they're not sitting in a meeting with 6 people. And so the cost savings for having those offline interactions is quite a bit.
So a final question for you. Why would someone not choose the collaborative process? Because it clearly sounds like it's the better way to go through a divorce.
It is often the better way to go through a divorce. I would discourage someone from choosing the process if there is family violence. We would want to do some very specific screening because a lot of our meetings are in person around a table, kind of like this one. And if there's been the dynamics that are often present with family violence, it may not be well suited to that process because one partner can intimidate and control the other one, sometimes without the other people even realizing that it's happening. There's also, you don't have to necessarily trust everything about the spouse you're divorcing in order to do collaborative. But if there's a person that has a personality that really won't let them negotiate in good faith in some way, or they're not going to produce things even though they committed to do that in the process, those people might do better not to enter the collaborative process because at the end of the day, those particular spouses need a situation where you do have a judge who can issue an order that will make someone do the things that they need to do.
But most cases, you think, are best for collaborative?
Most cases are well suited to collaborative. They may take varying amounts of work on the part of the professionals in the case, but most cases are well suited for collaborative.
And I love the line, this is not everybody sitting around the table singing Kumbaya. It's hard work, right?
It is hard work. Like I said, people do not have to trust each other in order for the process to work. And it is often, just like the marriage that is broken down with some conflict, there's often some conflict in those meetings or conflict in an offline meeting that has to be resolved. And that doesn't mean that people are not well suited for the process because that can be done and is done all the time.
Darci Loveless, thank you for joining us on the Respectful Divorce podcast today.
Thank you.
Now, if somebody wants to get a hold of you, what's the best way to get more information about you and to reach out to you personally?
We have a website at www.loveless.law, and our office phone number is 940-387-3776. And our staff knows that we are participating in the free consultations associated with Divorce with Respect Week. So by mentioning that, you'll be signed up for a free 30-minute consultation with either myself or my associate, Erin Healy, who's also collaboratively trained.
We will put all of that information, that contact information, in the show notes. For those of you watching us online, thank you for watching the Respectful Divorce podcast. This important programming note, Divorce with Respect Week is coming up March 1st through 8th, 2026. During Divorce with Respect Week, you can talk with lawyers, divorce coaches, and divorce financial experts for free to learn more about the divorce process and your options. Simply go to divorcewithrespectweek.com to find professionals near you. Divorce with Respect Week, March 1st through 8th. That website, once again, divorcewithrespectweek.com. I'm Tim Crouch for the Respectful Divorce podcast, reminding you that collaborative divorce is a better way to untie the knot.